Hello, my friends and beloved yogis. Today we are working on the pelvic girdle. So I will give you all some time to just take a few moments to jump into your Teachable so you can go to the major bone section and then check out the pelvic girdle. And there's two pelvic girdles. There's the male and the female. And we want to avoid utilizing such terminology as male and female because it has become a little bit more controversial these days with identity and role identity. However, there's no mistaking who we are on the inside from our bone composition and structure. So we want to navigate these waters by asking anyone of transgender, what were they born as? And the reason for this is because we can go through all of the different transformations on the outside, but we cannot change the bone structure within. So we call our anatomy of the pelvic girdle for the female shape and the male girdle because they're very different in the way that they are structured. So I have Madeline here, okay, and she's gonna snap a little bit. But Madeline is she's my guest today, and she is anatomical neutral position. So I'm just going to move her arms up out of the way. And what I like for you to see is her pelvic girdle is wider. So this is going to let me know that Madeline is a girl because Madeline's pelvic girdle flares out towards the sides. It doesn't go up and down. It flares way out more, creating a lot of space in the pelvic region for what? The reproductive organs. So in this particular area, the pelvic girdle is created so that the base of the pelvic floor, so where the anus and the urethra or any of the excrements would be going through, is created in this downward funnel shape, or where the head of the child would come out. The pelvic side, this what we call the ASIC, is what actually expands a little bit to create that space for the child to develop. In a gentleman, the ASIS would actually be a lot slimmer. So it would be narrower as opposed to being wide and fanned out like Madeline's is today. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen with you as I place her down so that we can go over this section together. This is a very important section because there's a lot going on, needless to say. And this is also where our students, when we practice yin yoga, we practice these hip opening poses and postures to help us with giving ourselves more space to eliminate and also to create more space for the diaphragm functioning. With that, those of you listening in and as opposed to watching, visualize here for a moment a pelvis. Like you can put your thumbs on your own pelvic points here, looking in the mirror. For the most part, one thumb might be higher than the other, okay? And the reason for that is because naturally as we age or as we grow, our bodies tend to shift. For myself personally, I was in an accident and my right hip shifted and was impacted. So my right hip is actually lower than my left hip. So I find that I have much more sensation and tightness on my right side than I do on my left side. I'm also more flexible in recent times on my left side than I am on my right. And the real reason is because of what's happened with the pelvic inlet, which is the space enclosed by the pelvic brim. You can see it here in the picture, so I'm going to encourage you for this segment, as opposed to listening in, to actually go in and watch these videos. Now, the pelvic girdle is the yoke that connects the lower extremities to the axial skeleton, and you can see that in the image below. You'll see, even when you looked at Madeline before, how the lumbar spine connects to the sacrum, connects to the coccyx, and you'll see the sacroiliac, and you'll see, of course, the entire pelvis. You'll also notice the hip joint along with the femur. So you're starting to see that the pelvic girdle consists of bringing together the lower limbs of the body. The femur is the thigh bone. And so these bones come together to create the structure. And the bone structure is relative to kapha. As we know, kapha is responsible for our structure. And so we want to make sure that we have a healthy bone marrow and a healthy connectivity of these tissues. The pelvic girdle is a ring of bones that are attached to the vertebral column that connects the bones of the lower limbs to that axial skeleton. And as we saw, we were anatomically neutral. So when we're looking from the front, we are looking at the space of how the pelvic girdle is either fanning out or being more neutral. And depending on that will also determine if we have a male or a female pelvis. And the pelvic girdle consists of the right and the left hip bones. Each hip bone is a large, flattened, and irregularly shaped fusion of the three bones. So you can see here how the ilium here, the ilium ischium, is attached to the sacrum and also attached to the pubic bone, to the pubis muscle, okay, or sorry, the pubis bone, okay? So we'll pause there for a second if anyone has any questions about that. Okay, no questions yet. All right, perfect. And so a couple things I wanted to actually go over now that I have your attention is when we look at Madeline, okay, I want you to, and I just want to make sure that I'm also being able to, that she's in the camera here. So we look at this empty space here, this big opening here, okay? So this is where the pelvic girdle muscles are housed. This is where they're housed here. And then the glute is over, glute maximus is over, medius under, minimus. And the coccyx is this little tail. It's this little tailbone. And then we call it the tailbone. In yoga, we also call it the tailbone just in general when we're talking about the coccyx, okay? The iliac bones are this crest. We call it the aces, the iliac, the ilis, okay? And these are the sacroiliac joints. This is what connects everything together. And then, of course, we have the femur, okay? So I hope that this answers quite a bit of questions in regards to just a basic high-level overview of the pelvic girdle. We are going to get deeper into this when we go into the musculature of the pelvic girdle, but I just wanted to give you that heads up as we begin to proceed that the biggest takeaway here, is that we have two versions of our pelvic girdle. We have the female and the male. The female fans out to create space for the baby, and the male is more slim and narrower. You'll also notice that when women walk, they tend to walk kind of like swinging their hips, as opposed to when men, they walk very stagnant and straight. Because the females are actually, their femur is wrapping around that joint, the sacroiliac joint, as they're moving. So their bone structure is actually kind of like a little dance when they're moving to create more of a gait that is simple, and the male is more neutral, right? And then also the spine then attaches itself to where the coccyx goes. So these last bones here, so I just want to show you also on the dummy, on Madeline, hers are fused together just for the sake of what she is. However, if this was a skeleton from a doctor's office, you will actually see these individually by themselves and articulatable. Now that's a word, I just made it up. So it'll be articulatable when you are able to see them not fused together. They are fused together at the coccyx. So you have about 5 or 6 little bones here of the vertebral column that are actually fused together. And this is what we call the sacrum as well as the coccyx. So I just want to clarify that for those of you that are jumping into this new. All right. Any of you that have more experience with anatomy or are in the medical profession, I would love to hear from you, and I would love to hear your take on the pelvic girdle. We are going to get deeper into this when we go into the muscle structure. So please keep that in mind. Now, if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and love you and leave you. We have quite a lot to go over. And so again, keep in mind that you have the 3 fusions, which is the ilium, the ischium, and the pubic. Okay, so much love, y'all. This was so great and so much fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next module.